All right, construction champions, it's your host, Ron Nussbaum, and we're here for another amazing episode of Construction Champions Podcast. Well, like I say, we're burning down the house so we can rebuild it. And that's not just a construction term, that's what we're doing with your business. Every week, twice a week, we're bringing on experts that are giving you items that you can go implement today. So if you don't, you're not being a champion, and you might need to find another podcast to listen to. There's a lot of them out there that don't want you to go do great things. There's a lot of them that want you to do great things. You should be listening to those, but most important, you should be doing what the people say. I bring on experts. We got Jeff with us today. He is an expert in technology for the construction industry. He's so fired up about his ability to come in and his team and help you do amazing things that he wanted to come on here and talk about it. So we need to take that. We need to go do amazing things. Jeff, it is great to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome, man. Now, you're the founder of Groundwork. You've been doing that for about 5 years. You're doing amazing things in the construction industry. You're helping a lot of guys do amazing things. We got connected through Jeff, or Les. See, I'm not perfect. Les connected us. What I want to know is, what are you most excited about right now with what you're doing?
Yeah, I think what we have seen is, with Groundwork in particular, is people really latch on to not technology for technology's sake. There's a lot of technology out there, but technology that really, really moves the needle. On our space is, the sales process. So there are just more and more contractors that are kind of wising up to that customer experience angle in the sales process. And man, it's when they get it. And it's really, really fun to see them improve and grow and become more profitable and all those things. So that's what makes me excited to wake up every morning and get to the office and make it all happen.
Awesome, man. That customer experience is so important in the sales process, and it's something that can definitely be overlooked at times. So I'm excited for our conversation today. We're going to jump right in there, and I'm going to ask you the $1 million question. And that is, what makes a construction champion?
I think what makes a construction champion is the ability to take a bunch of information and build business process that fits your business. So, there are tons of coaches, there are tons of YouTube videos, and there are tons of, like you said, there's tons of podcasts that, can give you hints and all that stuff. I think people can take that stuff and just get completely overwhelmed and they don't know what to do. So I think the people that really rise to the top are just the people who can take the bits of information that apply to them and make it happen. Just get to work. Don't beat around the bush, don't, get into that analysis paralysis, but figure out ways that, figure out tools, systems, people that fit, that work, and being able to put all that stuff together in a business process. I think that's what makes people rise to the top.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more, is that there can be a lot of overwhelming stuff sometimes, especially when you dive into it and you're like, I want to get really good at this. You deal with the sales process. I'm sure you get a lot of guys that come to you that are like, man, I am just so overwhelmed with all of this stuff. I just want to be better at it. So how do you help guys get through that when there is so much noise and figuring out exactly what works for them? Because everybody's different.
Yeah, I think, we look at things on a couple of different, from a couple of different angles. One is just size of the business. I think there are many contractors who are not to a point where they should really be thinking so much about, the whiz bang AI technology thing. It's like, no, man, just go and do your thing. Get as profitable as you possibly can, before you jump into having 7 pieces of technology and an office staff and this and that, like, so making the right decisions at the right point is a big part of it. So where are you as a business owner from a business process perspective, and from a maturity perspective, what decisions should you be making, or what decisions should you not be making? I think team has a lot to do with it. Do you have a team that's ready for changes in, whether it be technology or other processes? And honestly, when it comes into a change management role at some point, as you have a team and you have some bit of process, you have a process whether you realize it or not. It could be just like the default process as just kind of is what it is, and not very thoughtful. But you do have a process. So if you're going to add or adjust it, you need to be very aware of that. Bring the right people into the conversation early. That's a big one. People just try to like throw a new piece of tech in or throw a new thing in the process, and it's just, whoa, you have people that are like doing it. They're like, whoa, you want us to do what? They don't know the why. So focusing on the why is a big one too. So maturity of the business. I think there's a lot to be said for just like what your sales process looks like, and how, if you're beating off leads with a stick, then you can afford to like look at some things. If you're struggling to figure out demand, and like your lead flow, like where leads are coming from, then like that's number one. So there are some stair steps on how we help contractors think about some of those things when it comes to our technology, but that certainly applies. I think people get excited about tech sometimes a little bit too fast, especially smaller contractors just starting out. There's obviously foundational pieces of software that you need, but man, if you can't figure out where your next lead's coming from, then figure that one out.
Yeah, that is pretty much the most important thing there. But you said a couple of things that really hit home for me. And especially when you talked about jumping on the AI, all this stuff that's happening, and thinking you need to just jump on whatever the next new bandwagon is when you don't even know how that's going to implement throughout your company, or what other results you're going to create. I think that's powerful. And what's really powerful is when you said you have a system, whether you think you do or not. So everybody does. If you're the owner of the company and you're running all the sales leads, there's a way you do it every time. And you need to start, in my mind, you need to start documenting that stuff. So when you start talking to somebody like Jeff, you can say, this right here's how I do it every time. Or say you hire somebody that gives you a system. Is that what you see out there? Is that like kind of the first steps? Is like you need to make sure you understand what your system is, because you have one, whether you think you do or not.
I mean, there's a term SOP, standard operating procedure. When you have a team, incredibly important to have that in place, but it's also really easy to just start a Google Doc, or just even on a pen and paper. Take 10 minutes after you run a sales appointment and say like, okay, what was the process that I went through? Write it down. Bullet points are great for this. So even just like taking that first step of just documenting some stuff is really, really helpful. If only for your self-reflection, that's great. You can kind of say, hey, that was good, that was bad. Maybe I should think about doing it this way or the other way. Office processes, same way. Just start to document some of that. It doesn't take very long, especially if you're kind of like in the mindset of, and like kind of just completed the thing. Pretty easy to write it out. So it's a great thing to have, not only when you're evaluating, adjusting a process, but for training, like you said, bringing on a new teammate. Man, it's really helpful to just have some of that stuff there. We do, I would say, an okay job of documenting some of our SOPs, and what we do changes pretty often, just because we're nimble and a quick, fast-growing technology company. But yeah, there's a lot to that whole process of documenting, but it doesn't have to be complex. There's a high ROI on starting to document those processes. I like to keep it short, bullet points, pretty simple stuff.
Yeah, I think we can overcomplicate it, because when we start
Yeah,
talking about standard operating procedures here, people get really like, oh, I need to write a damn book. Like, this is going to
right.
be like 200 pages of how I wake up in the morning and then go use the bathroom and put my pants on, when really
Right.
what it just needs to be is the high level of what you do that makes the business successful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think there's some things that do deserve that second, third pass in getting detailed. Like as a simple example, um, office stuff might be kind of like this, right? You bring in a new office staff person, you might need to include some screenshots or I also think getting some why in those documents, like why do we do it this way, is really, really helpful. So yeah, including some of that stuff on the second, third pass, yes, absolutely. But to start, don't try to get there first. Outline it first. And maybe this is just the way I think, but I've found when you outline like high level where you're going to go with this with the SOPs, you can always come back and fill it out, right? With the why and the detailed information that you might need to communicate. But I mean, I've seen it happen. I mean, you probably have too. People overcomplicate things all the time. So keep it simple to start and go back and then punch it up after.
Well, I think that's what matters, is if you come in and you just keep it simple to start, you're actually get it completed. And we can get
Yeah.
too much down in the weeds where we're trying to make everything do it all at once. When if you do that high level overview, it'll naturally allow you to come in and fill in the why and fill in
Hmm.
that process or
Yep.
that screenshot. And you have a better understanding as you start to utilize it. I think a lot of times also is people just think that SOPs is a once done forever thing, but it's an ever
Right.
evolving document
Oh yeah.
as your company grows.
Yeah. I mean, we use a tool called Notion, and it's kind of like a Google Doc, kind of like a Trello board, kind of like a lot of different things. But it allows us, it's flexible, and we can comment, and we can it's a collaboration space. So I mean, that's where a lot of our stuff lives. How we do events, how we do trade show. That's a really great one for a contractor view, home shows. How do you do a trade show? What have you found? I like to say, like, what's the one sentence you get to stop people's feet from moving and turn towards you? That's a really effective thing to write down somewhere, so that when you have your project manager who doesn't usually do trade shows, he's coming in from the outside, like, he's coming in from 2 different sales appointments. He's like, I just showed up at the booth and, got the McDonald's on his face still. It's like, what do I do? It's like, well, we have this SOP, and like, this is exactly how we do it. And you might say like, hey, we only do 1 or 2 of those a year. But I mean, just writing it down real quick is really easy. I mean, that could be on a piece of paper. So anyways, it doesn't have to be complex, but it does, like, the ROI is just very, very high.
Yeah, it's amazing the kind of results that you can generate with just say like a one pager. That's just
Yeah.
like, hey, here real quick, this is how we're going to close jobs out going forward, and here's why. And
Yep.
it's just in one page, and you give that to all the project managers and foremen, the guys that do that kind of stuff. And now they understand it. It's a quick read. It's not overwhelming, but it just highlights it all right there.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
So trade shows are an amazing thing. I used to do some trade shows, and having that one liner and figuring all of that stuff out. And then we did exactly what you're talking about doing, is we built out just a one pager, just like, this is how you do it at the trade shows. Like, this is why we set the booth up this way. This is why we say this. And this
Yep.
is the end results. And it's amazing as you continue to scale and grow, you can just bring in people, like you said, the project manager with the McDonald's hanging off the face, coming to appointments, can step right in there, 5 minutes, be a pro at it, because they're already a pro. They understand everything. They just don't understand how exactly they do this current role they're in for the day.
Yep, exactly.
So how do you help bring contractors, builders, all the residential construction industry into utilizing software? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so our product is a think about it like a digital first sales tool. So when we get a contractor and we hear them say, "Yeah, I'm really frustrated because I feel like I'm running all these appointments, not much is happening, and I feel like I'm wasting my time because we don't have a good pre-qualification process in place." I saw a post the other day of a guy who came to a job site, an estimate appointment, and there was another contractor there while he was on the appointment. It's like, hey buddy, how's it going? So how are you seeing it apart as well? Looking different than the other guy. How are you making like that customer experience? How are you putting your best foot forward so that your customer experience makes you look like, the best contractor that they could possibly ever think about talking to? That's what when we hear contractors think about, hey, how am I differentiating my brand? How am I making sure that the sales appointments I go on are actually real and valuable? We also do a lot with converting from web leads, what your website looks like and how leads get converted from the website. We step into that conversation and we help contractors kind of rethink how they're orienting their sales process. So we don't think that in-person sales is dead by any means, but we do think that a lot of homeowners don't want that to be the first step. We know that homeowners want digital experiences. So our tool is a way for them to way for contractors to collect video project walkthroughs from homeowners. So those large video files that are annoying to transfer from device to device. And homeowners don't really know what to include in their project videos. We kind of walk them through how to create the project video, and then we handle the transfer, all in a way that keeps the contractor's brand front and center. And then we have some digital collaboration tools that allow contractors and homeowners to kind of collaborate via video. Additionally, even after that first entry is made. So that's what we do. That's why we exist, is just really helping contractors, build a process that's a little more modern, a little bit more thoughtful, but with very, very obvious gains to the customer experience and just the time savings from a contractor's perspective.
Yeah, I can see how that could save a lot of time and make the customer experience just better, because and you stand out. Like when we're always talking about differentiators, like hey, my kind of how I understand what you were just saying is, hey, we can come out, we can do it in person, or hey, shoot us over. We use this software to be able to just do this virtually as well at your convenience. And I think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, there's certain trades that we work with, and maybe they're design build. There's some element of design. You're not going to quote a $70,000 remodeler outdoor living space without going to see the person, right? But it's a trust builder. It's actually kind of funny to think about the amount of trust that gets built online, just in all sorts of ways. I mean, I've been married for a long time, so I don't know the online dating game, but people really develop relationships there. I mean, I'm sure you and I got connected from a friend that, I've known less through connections and whatnot, basically the internet, group networking groups and stuff of contractors on the internet, social and all that stuff. It's like, you can really become pretty close, have a trusting relationship with somebody just with, social media. And then, you go to the Google side of things and like all that other stuff, like those reviews are powerful. So like, how can we develop that like personalized version of trust in the sales process for contractors? That's what we're all about. The truth of the matter is homeowners, I bought a car 100% virtually about a couple of weeks ago. It was a state away. I knew what I wanted, asked a couple of questions, checked out the Carfax report. We're good to go, right? Like that's the way the world works now. So it's not out of the realm of possibility, even for larger projects, that you can't get a pretty decent way through the sales process in a virtual setting. And so that's what we enable.
Well, and it helps, what's the first question everybody always wants to know is how much is this going to cost me?
Yeah.
Well, you can't
Right.
blindly do that, but having some info into that, you can at least have a rough estimate. You can start to actually talk some numbers, and
Yep.
that it lowers the guard for that homeowner down to where now it's not as like they feel. I just think people feel like it's going to be some high pressure situation where you're going to come in. I'm not going to leave until you sign the paperwork, when 90% of the time, that's not how the sales process works, but that's the homeowner's impression. That's the emotion they feel. So we have to understand that's how they feel. How do we validate that and then work around it so it becomes a good relationship for both parties from the beginning?
Yeah, I love how you said that, validate that, because I think a lot of in the absence of using a tool like Groundwork or having a good process to talk through that pricing side of things, like I always say that homeowners want to talk price because it's a huge part of a decision. And homeowners have been burnt where they're like, call a contractor to their house and they think the thing's, X amount of dollars, and contractor comes in who knows their stuff and knows what it's going to take, and they're like, hey, it's actually 3X. Like that's no good for anybody, right? So a lot of times it's not because they don't have budget or they don't want to, they've just been burnt. They just want some information. They just want to, that's a big part of the conversation. So like, they just kind of want to know some info. Think validating that question as like an honest, okay question for a homeowner to ask as almost a first thing. That's okay. Like that's what everybody asks, So our take is that is an invitation. When somebody says, hey, how much do you think this project is going to cost? That's an invitation. Contractors should see dollar signs as in revenue when that question is asked, as opposed to like, oh, here we go, all they care about is price. That is an invitation for a contractor to be awesome, to prove your worth, to bring value, all of those things. Like, well, I've been doing this for 20 years, and there's a lot of factors that come into a project like this. It sounds like, actually we've done some work in your side of town, so I roughly know what those houses are, like the construction, and I've got your home pulled up here, so I'm taking a look at it on Redfin or Zillow. So I've got an idea of what this might take, but what would be really helpful is if you talked through on video and just shared that with me. That gives me a chance to like see the project. And I could probably give you a rough ballpark, because I can probably do that. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be exact, and there are things that can escalate that price, but I could probably give you a rough ballpark. And how does that sound as the next step of the process here? When contractors are able to get that talk track out and they use our tool to go through that process, man, it's a really powerful process, because you heard them, you give them a chance to like share their project, they lean into the process, you have better information than anybody else is going to have, usually within a couple minutes. Like, it's a pretty powerful process. You speed up a lot of that trust building side of things, then you can truly have a closing conversation. We like to say we get people on second or third base right off the bat. And so those next conversations are just further along, quicker. So it's kind of been fun to see how that's happened, because homeowners love it. They want to have those conversations. And if you treat it right, you can take a budget question and turn it into a really, really strong sales conversation. If you're willing to kind of do the work and take it for what it is as an invitation.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, these are conversations that we shouldn't be running away from. We should be leaning into
Yeah.
and just understanding, like, this is part of that buying cycle. Like, not every customer we go to is just going to be like, all right, whatever it is, I'll write the check. Like, we have to work through this with homeowners. We have to make sure they're comfortable. And what you're just talking about is those differentiators. How do we differentiate ourselves from the other guy that was out there that isn't a champion, came in, got pissed off when they asked about how much they thought it was going to be, scribbled some stuff out and moved on with his life and left a bad impression. And that's not what we should be doing. We should be putting our best foot forward.
Yep. Yeah. Or going through, writing some notes and saying, hey, I'll give you a full on quote. I don't want to give you the wrong impression here. I'll give you a full on quote here in a week or two. Man, it's not how most of the world works right now. So yeah, it's an interesting conversation. I love talking about that question because it's so easy for contractors to take. It's simple, but it's not easy, I guess, is maybe the way to say it. But mastering that question can be really powerful.
Yeah, I think it, like you said, it's not simple, but it's not like overcomplicated. I think a lot of it just comes down to fear. A lot of times guys are afraid to talk about money for either personal reasons, or they're afraid like that's going to make or break the project right there. And run, like fight or flight. And a lot of times guys will either run or they're going to fight the homeowner, and neither one of those is how you should do. I look at it as it is an opportunity, because it's also an opportunity for you to start to understand what is that customer's budget, what are they thinking this should cost, and figuring all of that out so you can get on the same page and have an understanding. Is this even a good fit for you guys to work together?
Yeah. It's a two-way interview. I think there's also the old school way of doing it. I just got to get out there and see it. It's like, well, if you start, we do sometimes do a bit of an exercise in, rooms or conferences and stuff. And, hey, what's an hour of your time worth? And usually I'll get somebody to say, 50, $75, and I'll have one person say 300, 400, 800 bucks, and, who knows what the right answer is. There's some perception there. But if you look at a typical salesperson, it's, around that $100 mark, usually in most markets. That's a pretty safe number to use, $7,500. And then you layer in some cost of getting that salesperson to where they're going, the vehicle, the gas mileage, all that stuff starts to add up. So there's just like some real cost savings of like protecting contractors' time, whether it be you as the owner running sales appointments or the contractor themselves or the sales team. There's cost to running appointments. And I know people who will tune into this have had the experience of running out to that part of town you didn't think you wanted to go to, but hey, it was a lead that thought maybe we could squeak something out. And it just ends up being a dog of a project. There's all sorts of reasons you're not going to work on it. And before you know it, 10 minutes in the conversation, you've just wasted 2 hours of your day, right? Like that's a very common thing. So protecting your time by getting better information is, again, another aspect of using the tool. But even if you're not using Groundwork, like doing that analysis of like, hey, what's the sales appointment cost me? Like any given sales appointment, win or lose, what does it cost me to run a sales appointment down? Something most contractors don't really think about.
Yeah, that's really, really good stuff right there. So I love it, man. You've been fantastic today. You've dropped a lot of knowledge. You're helping a lot of guys, and I love what you're talking about doing. I love everything that you said today. It's been fantastic. So Jeff, if any of the champions out there wanted to reach out to you, connect with you, look at what you're doing, what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
So our website is hellogroundwork.com. Hellogroundwork.com, just like it sounds. So yeah, check us out there. Hello Groundwork on all the social stuff. You can hit me up on LinkedIn, Jeff Wraley, or shoot me an email, jeff@hellogroundwork.com. Shoot me an email. Love to hear from you. On the website, there's some stuff you can go test out how the product works and get kind of mess around. And we got some videos and all sorts of fun stuff out there. So go check it out.
Yeah, and you have a great podcast on there as well that check out.
We'll have to get you on there. We've got some fun people that we talked to, and we're ramping up a bunch more content here. And appreciate you mentioning it.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for being on the show today.
Yeah, appreciate it, Ron.
Awesome. All right, construction champions, another great episode. Make sure you go check out everything Jeff has going on. He's doing amazing things. He's talking to amazing people, and he's putting out great content to help you grow your business and understand your sales process, which we spent a lot of time talking about today. Not just the process, but how you handle emotions of homeowners and how conversations that we look at as being hard should be the conversations we actually lean into and don't run away from. This is how we start to build those SOPs. This is how you create an environment where when you grow and you hire your sales staff and you hire that sales manager, they do the same thing you do. You write it out. You let them know that when that customer asks about the price, this is how we do it and this is why. Don't be afraid of that. Put it right in there in your SOPs. Then everybody does the same thing, and then you never have to worry about one of your sales reps, fight or flight. When that question comes up, you've trained, they understand exactly how to do this because you were the champion that put it out there and you had the conversations beforehand. There's a lot of golden nuggets in this episode. Like I say all the time, go back and listen to it again. Pick out those few things that you can implement today, because I know there's a lot of them in there. There's a lot of good stuff in this episode that you could go implement in your business today that would drive the ball for the next 12 to 24 months, and you would be amazed with the outcome that happens. So, construction champions, make sure you go to constructionchampionspodcast.com. Check out our partners and our sponsors that help keep this show rocking and rolling. Join our Construction Champions Mastermind Facebook group where we're bringing together guests with our listeners, and we're creating an environment where we can go be champions together. So, construction champions, until next time, go be the champion you were meant to be. Hey, construction champions, it's your host, Ron Nussbaum here, and I want to talk to you about how you can automate all of your marketing. We've had so many people on here talk about getting the systems in place. Well, we have partnered with Build 12 and Construction Champions podcast. Les O'Hara, the founder, what really excites me is his 30 years in the industry. And now he's built a system to be able to nurture your leads and continue to utilize that. I personally use the system myself. Build 12 is absolutely amazing. There's a lot of value in there, and it's a way to start getting away from Angie's List and all of that kind of stuff and start actually creating your own leads every day and have a system for them. So go on our website, check out the show notes, go check out Build 12 and what it can do for the front end of your business today. It's absolutely amazing. I highly recommend going and meeting with Les and his son, Devin, and talking to him about what they built for their own business so the rest of the industry can take benefit from that. Here on Construction Champions, we're all about helping each other out. And what is better than contractors helping contractors? I say nothing. So let's go take this to the next level. Go check out Build 12. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or Les or his son, Devin. We're here to help. We want to continue to grow the industry.